recording in progress. Well, we've got another episode of Movies in Minutes this week. We have my guest, Cass, who's a friend of mine, right? What's up, Cass?
Hey, what's up, Nabil?
Woo! So usually I start every episode that I have people on by asking them what type of movies they like before we get into whatever the new movies of the week are. That way the audience gets a sense for what kind of movies you're into.
Okay. I'm very much a horror person. I would say I'm much less of a slasher person than I am a psychological horror person. I really like Night House. I don't want to say Hereditary because it is good, but it's like, oh, everyone loves it. But
It's okay to like things that other people like.
Yeah. I like things that have creeping dread that kind of just surmounts the whole time. And then, I'm not super into the let's flay your flesh and then hang it up to dry. It's yeah.
So you're saying you don't like this? I don't know if you can see
Okay,
it.
I mean, of course I like classics. Like Chucky's good. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to really love Freddy Krueger. I think it was because he scared me so much that I thought if I was like friends with him, I would be okay.
So basically, Scary Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I
bitch.
saw like a standee of him somewhere, and I thought he was the person that gave me throw up from how he looked. So I had to turn him around in my head. I'm like, oh, that's just my Uncle Fred. He's cool. So I kind of made him less scary to me by doing that.
Uncle Fred. That's great.
I actually had a few of my friends convinced he was the actor was my uncle, and I'm like, I feel really bad about this. I don't think I can come back from it now.
You just have to embrace it.
Yeah.
I was that way with zombie movies as a kid because my mom showed me Night of the Living Dead as my first movie, and I was terrified of zombies for years, and then eventually you either embrace being scared of it or you embrace the movies and stop being scared of it, and we went the second route. So actually on this note, and maybe I'll Shanghai you for this next week. I watched Insidious 1 for the first time today.
Oh,
unrelated to
wait,
to
for the
stuff
first time?
I had never seen them yet.
Wow. I really liked the first one, but I don't remember the rest. But the Red Door's coming out soon, isn't it?
Next week.
Okay.
So I've got 2, 3, and 4 to watch between now and then, but that won't be an issue because scary movies are usually not very long, which is pretty great when it comes to scary trilogies. I mean, it was like an hour and a half, I think, for number one. I bet you the fourth one will top out at like 2 hours. So
yeah.
It was really good. I actually thought it was kind of by the numbers at the first, and then by the time I hit the third act, it was really like it added layers and stuff that made it more original versus just being like a typical I don't know what you're gonna call it, like possession haunting movie.
Yeah. I definitely always remember I think I actually on IMDb wrote a review of it when it came out because I was just like, I really like this movie, and like I love the like title screen which is like brown. I'm like it was so unexpected, and now I think that kind of thing's more stylized and you see that a lot more, but at the time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're in this movie now. I like it. So
that's fair. I mean, the first one definitely plants seeds for some kind of mythos, which I'm curious to see where they go. But I'll have to get back to you on that next time.
Yeah.
So the movies this week that we had, I don't think none of them were horror related.
They're all very much out of my wheelhouse.
Really, and that means it'll be tough to make you a believer if there's any reason to, because there's not always. But I believe the first one was Theater Camp.
Yes.
What did you glean from that trailer? What did it make you think it was about?
Okay, I took a little bit of notes here on things.
Notes, yay!
Notes, yes. I thought it was interesting. It looks like it takes place in the Adirondacks.
It does.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
A little close to home for us.
Yeah, right. What I noticed about it, it's probably going to be some sort of a coming of age story. Like, oh, these kids are at this camp and we're going to do this thing with them. And by doing this, they're going to like learn and they're going to be themselves, and they're something like that. I don't really know about the humor. It's a little dry. It's probably meant for like a younger crowd. I will say I don't know much about plays, theaters. I was never a theater kid myself. I learned something from the trailer when they were talking about what did they say, a straight play or a musical. About a month ago I went to see Grey House, which is on Broadway. that is a straight play because they only sang like twice and they didn't sing their lines. They just actually sang a couple songs. And I'm like, oh, so because I was just like, well, what do I call it? It's not really a musical. So yeah, it could be cute. I don't really, like I said, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be everybody learns a little something from everyone else by working together, trying to make this thing, whatever they're trying to put on. And it's a little art housey, in my opinion.
It definitely has a mockumentary vibe when you actually like sit down and you're watching it. Like nobody ever is like sitting down in a confessional talking to a camera, but it feels like you're watching something like The Office or something where people look like they're being filmed. And it's basically the story of an annual theater camp whose director goes comatose before the start of the summer, and it's left in charge of her very, very cringy, very social media conscious son, who's all about trying to make money and has no real concern or care for the theater kids and what they want or what their reason for being there is. He's all about trying to like get kind of a get rich quick type thing.
Was he the one that was asking about his CBD gummies in the trailer? Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's a little.
Yeah, he, if anything, has the most to learn, and I mean, it's not a huge leap to say that he goes from maybe being on one side to maybe being on another side. How he gets there is maybe part of what the story's about. But you know what I mean, a little bit of everybody has something to learn. And yeah, the humor is a little drier. It's not as like in your face. Although there is some like over the topness by some of the characters. There's one character that, I mean, I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but they like frame her as like there's a they give you a subtitle under certain people's names, who they are, like when they first get introduced, and under her name they're like, it's like lied about everything on her resume.
Oh, okay.
So she's there working at this theater camp under the pretense of knowing anything she's talking about and does not. So every time you see her in a scene, she's just like, so what is this about? Making it kind of sound like she's trying to test the students when really she has no idea.
Like she's maybe trying to get the information herself.
Yeah, and it's pretty comical seeing that. So not being a theater person, I don't want to prejudge this, but I feel like I know the answer. Given the trailer, given knowing some details about it, do you think this is something that you would watch? You can be honest. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody was like, hey, this is something I wanted to check out, I would check it out. I wouldn't initially say it would be on my radar where I'd be like, man, like I have to check this out. It's not something I would be like, absolutely not, but I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh no, like I'm really intrigued by that.
That's fair. So it's like a B choice if other people were interested.
Yeah. Like I said, especially things. I hate to like show my weebness here, but it's almost like a slice of life movie in a sense.
Kind of,
you could definitely see this being an anime. So I mean, those I usually gauge by like, well, how relatable is it to my own life? Because I want to feel my own feelings here. But I guess at the end of the day, feeling other types of things is also really important. Like I've never been a theater kid, but maybe I'd like to see what it's like to have a little bit of that. And I don't necessarily know that any of these kids are of that particular vibe where they're like, I want to be on Broadway when I get older. They're probably just here and they're like, all right, I guess we're going to do a thing. So maybe some of them go towards that. Maybe some of them don't.
You get that from maybe some of the counselors, but the kids are probably a little too young for that. Their scope is more narrow. Like, I want to do things with my friends. I want to be
I got a crush on the boy or whatever.
Yeah. And it's very contemporary. It's not. It's definitely not like some movies that try to avoid certain subject matter. It's very, very open, I'll say. So if you watch, especially with the comment about the straight shows,
play or gay play.
Yeah. So
a musical?
they don't avoid any of that, which is totally good.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a maybe for you. Cool. That's not. I bet on the wrong horse for that one, but the whole relatable thing I think will come up in the last one we talk about today, because I sent them to you in a certain order, but I'm gonna hold the second one for last.
Okay.
Number two is probably the one that most people who, if anybody watching this weekend either have already seen by now or will see because it just came out.
Right.
Indiana Jones, number 5.
5. Okay.
So, or Dial of Destiny, as it's really known as. But what did that one do for you? I know you told me something about that beforehand, but I'll let you tell your feelings on it
Sure.
to everybody.
I've never seen an Indiana Jones movie.
Mhm.
What are my notes here? So obviously there's some elements of time travel, which is interesting.
Mhm.
I don't know what he does for a job. They had him walking in and they're like, "Oh, like it's your last day." And I'm just like, he's Indiana Jones. Like, is this, are you a professional spelunker? But I think he's, what I've been told is that he's a historian slash college professor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
He's a professor of archaeology in addition to being an archaeologist, but he's a badass archaeologist versus like dusting
The
stuff off
snooty,
with a little
yeah,
brush.
okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, my immediate cynicism is along the lines of he's what, I don't know, 60, 70 at this point.
100.
Yeah, he's pretty agile for some of the things he's doing. And that to me is like, I can't do that. Maybe in his heyday, he like, as that character could do all that stuff. But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it seems a little sus. I don't know who this movie is for. I don't know if everyone are sitting around was like, what we need is a new Indiana Jones movie. And maybe there is that. I'm not well versed with the culture because I know people used to really like those movies. But I don't know if it's the kind of thing where like, did it end somewhere where people thought, that makes sense. But now there's another one. So is it one of those like cash grabs where they're like, hey, like, let's bring back Indiana Jones and do this? And I mean, the digital de-aging has come a long way, and from what I could tell, he looked pretty good in those scenes, and it makes sense.
He did, yeah.
And it's a blockbuster movie, right? So it's probably not bad. It's probably not 0 stars, 1, 2 even. It's probably at least 3, if not more, depending on your opinion on that stuff. For me, I'd have to have interest peaked, because a lot of the stuff is just like, when I watch trailers, I get very annoyed by the things people like, which are things like things in the movie going along to the beat of the music. So let's say like people are like loading guns and it's like chung, 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 and it goes along to the musical beat. That annoys me. I don't know what it is. So those types of things in trailers especially, I'm just like, oh, this movie sucks, which is dumb, because this is why I often avoid trailers, because the trailers make me mad about the movie. But I've matured in my life where, like, not to get off on a thing, but Five Nights at Freddy's has a couple of trailers, and I don't know how I feel about them, but I'm going to see it regardless because I'm highly invested in the lore of it. But regardless, I'm just saying trailers don't always do what they're supposed to for everybody.
No, and that's kind of part of the premise of the show here is a lot of times when I have people watch trailers, sometimes they form opinions that are off from what the trailer intends, or maybe just based on their personal views kind of send them in a different direction, and we either reel them back in or we let them know that the trailer did its job and subverted their view. I don't know that that's always the case. I think sometimes they do it and sometimes they spoon feed you too much. It's hard to find the middle ground there. As far as Indiana Jones goes, I can sympathize or empathize at the very least with you that I have never, until this week or this past week, I had never watched an Indiana Jones movie. I purposely watched them, knowing that I was going to go see number 5.
Well, sure, I think that's fair.
The thing about it is, though, having watched them all, I don't know if you've got any context for this. I know in your family there's some interest, but James Bond movies are kind of like one-off every time you watch them. And with a little bit of connective tissue, these Indiana Jones movies are very similar.
Okay.
Between 1, 2, and 3, they make like no reference to each other. other than like they tell you what year they're in.
Okay.
And then 4 makes reference to 1, and 5 makes reference to 1. It's and the references are like, I don't want to say minor, but they definitely don't really affect the story
They didn't
too
have
much.
to. Yeah.
You know, you figure out from context clues what you need to. But they're basically big adventure stories, you know, guys looking for something for someone, maybe it's himself, the museum, somebody, and there's always some trouble along the way. The biggest Indiana Jones trope apparently is that he likes punching Nazis. So this latest iteration did have him go up against Nazis again, because they're pretty sure this is his last one. Harrison Ford, as stated, is pretty old.
Yeah.
That de-aging tech did wonders. Like, having seen these movies in the span of the same week, he looked pretty close. I mean, I knew I was looking at CGI, but if I didn't, it'd be a tough to tell the difference. Yes, there's time travel involved. There's some uniqueness to this time travel that I appreciated, because there's always so many different takes on time travel. I mean, we just saw this movie and they were like, hey, fuck you, Marvel, here's our version of time travel. And now Disney is doing it again, where they're like, hey, we own Marvel, but here's another way time travel can work. So I think the demographic, as far as what you were saying before, goes, this is probably diehard Indiana Jones fans. Not that somebody couldn't walk in and watch it, as far as I could tell, but I think the payoff feels weightier for somebody who's enjoyed all these movies.
There's nostalgia for someone who's seen the others.
There is for sure nostalgia. Also, there's a long, I don't know, I want to say long, but there's a pretty solid feeling in the Indiana Jones camp that the last movie that came out was really bad. I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, so maybe they wanted to leave off on a better note.
Sure.
Personally, I think that you're right. I think I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't bad, but it, you know,
didn't blow your way.
Well, I mean, like, compared to the originals, it's never going to beat the foundation. It was, very rarely can a sequel beat the foundation it was built on. Doesn't mean I would tell people to stay away from it. So I mean, regardless of the fact that you've never seen it before, knowing that you don't really need to have, is this like, how would this inform your desire to see or not see?
Again, it's one of those things. If there was some people that were like, hey, we're gonna watch this, or again, I will almost always watch a movie if there's someone that's showing an interest that I can kind of experience with. I'm like, what do you appreciate out of this movie? And nevertheless, I will probably appreciate something with it too. I mean, I've never been huge into like sci-fi, but there's a lot of elements of sci-fi that I find interesting. And, you know, like one of my podcasts I'm listening to now that you mention it, is also very time travel related. And with that, it's like you had mentioned, you know, they do time travel differently. And like, I can appreciate like, oh, like this is a different take on it, because we don't have time travel. So we don't really know exactly how things would work. So
different
I can
strokes for different folks.
Yes. So I can definitely go into things and find an appreciation for it. Would I come back from it and probably say, oh, this is great, you know, I'd watch it again? Probably not. But most things I would give a chance once. There's some things that I probably wouldn't. I watched Mad Max Fury Road years ago, and that movie pisses me off. That's a whole other thing. It's like one of my like bottom. It's the stupidity. Anyways. I won't.
Is it on its own, or as it relates to other Mad Max movies?
Just on its own. They're like, oh, the girls are gone, so let's use this. It's a world where gas is sparse. Let's take the rock and roll truck and every vehicle that we own, use all the gas that we have to get these girls back. It's stupid. It's so stupid. And then they got the bouncing. Oh my god.
The baser urges of men in the post-apocalypse. What can I tell you?
Yeah, it's a very specific demographic that's for, and it's not me, and that's okay. It makes me angry.
The the third one that I gave you for today, if I would say any of these is relatable to you at all, especially with weeb being a word that we brought up, I feel that this movie is the one. What was the third movie that I sent you a trailer for?
It was Joyride, Red Band.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like,
Oh, it
Joyride,
was,
that's a movie.
yeah, just Joyride. Yeah,
Just
Red
Joyride.
Banda
Oh,
is the type of
is
trailer
the
it
type.
was.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like the other
What did
Joyride.
you? So when I went to go write my review for this for Joyride, like the app that I use, there must have been 10 different movies named Joyride over the last 50 years.
It's one of those popular turn of phrases that you can make really fun into a title, but unfortunately, you're not going to get a lot of exclusivity with that kind of a title.
This one definitely was meant to be both a term for a trip, which it would commonly be used for, and kind of a play on Joy Luck Club because it was all Asian cast, or mostly Asian cast.
Okay.
What do you think this one was about? What did the trailer give you in your takeaway?
I am not sure exactly.
Okay.
They're going on
they're
going on a trip. And one of them says, "This is a work trip for me, so don't be all cray cray." And she's just like, "What do you mean? I'm gonna be fine." I believe they're going to China, from what I can tell, which in a sense is going back to their past heritage. I mean, clearly they're Asian American. They were probably born here. I mean, according to the trailer, she's like, "Oh, I'm just a plain old American," or whatever. So for them to kind of go back and be exposed to their past, I suppose, is some of what I'm getting of it. There's a lot of like sexual stuff to it, which is not what I expected off the bat. It was just, they're like, it's like The Hangover and whatever. So, there's that element to it. There was in the trailer I saw, there was like a scene with all of them kind of dressed up, but it gave me the vibe of like Harajuku girls, which wouldn't be a thing in China as far as I understand. Not that there's probably a similar culture there that I just am not aware of, but it felt a little cliche in that sense.
I think the scene in particular is supposed to be one where they're trying to get somewhere and they feel that pretending they're K-pop stars will get them there quicker.
Sure. But notice you said K-pop.
Yeah.
We're saying Korea there. We're in China in this one. Not to say that again. Oh, they travel around.
It's correct though.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't think that's what K-pop stars look like. Maybe the girls. I'm used to like the just kind of pretty boys. It's definitely something I would watch because of my interest in Asia and like Asian culture. I will say, if it weren't for that, the over-the-top raunchiness definitely threw me off a bit. Not that I'm like horribly prudish. I'm like, I can't watch a movie they talk about sex. It's just, I don't like when that kind of thing is done to the point of being not funny anymore. I have a very specific realm of humor that I can laugh within. Yes, a very specific set of skills. I can't even say that, so I don't have any skills. Yeah, I don't know. It at least from the trailer, it felt like it was trying a little too hard to be funny. And maybe I would eat my words if I actually saw it, because again, as we just said, trailers sometimes don't portray what it needs to. And if that is, with a horror movie, it shows you all the jump scares, or it shows you all the parts that are scary, and then it leaves out everything in between. And maybe that's what this is doing. It's showing the parts that we think these are really funny parts, and then it's like negating the parts that you would actually get the most value from.
I was worried about that too, especially as I got to those scenes in the movie. They leave things out though, for sure. There are twists, there are turns, there is stuff that's even more over the top, if you can believe it. I think the piece of information that I have to provide, which I don't know is mentioned in the trailer at all, is this is a Seth Rogen movie.
I did see his name pop up.
Okay.
That does help a lot.
It does very much feel like Seth Rogen is putting his hands up the back of these Asian actors and actresses as if they were puppets. And you feel Seth Rogen like jokes and vibes coming out of some of the over the top sexual stuff, which it's not as if these people can't do that on their own, but that's part of what my takeaway was. One of the characters is the very like uptight one. She has to go to China for a business trip, and one of the friends tags along, and then the friend slips in that her cousin's gonna come, and then also when they get there, they meet another like friend from the past, and it's all basically trying to land a deal for her job, and she doesn't know her birth mother, and she doesn't really have a lot of interest in finding her. But when they meet her client, the client's like, oh well, I'm having a birthday party, bring your mom and we'll seal the deal. So it's like the finding the mom is the deus ex machina. And you think it's gonna go a certain way, and it doesn't, and I'm really happy that it didn't. It is funny. I did enjoy it. Again, I was in the mood for a comedy when I sat down and watched it too, though, so that kind of helped. I think of the three movies we talked about today, I enjoyed that one more than the other two, but only by like a little. Like because I actually really liked theater camp too. It was pretty cute, but I think that was the winner for the week for me. So the thing I noticed from what you said though about this is this one kind of seemed like something you would watch on your own. I'm not necessarily like sitting in the theater alone, but like of your own accord rather than as a tag along.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It does deal pretty exclusively with Chinese, Korean culture. They make one like offhand comment about Japan, which I was even as a Japanese person, I wanted to be offended, but I couldn't.
There's definitely a lot of tension between the three countries. I've noticed that like the racism that I noticed between like Japanese and Korean and Chinese there was crazy. And for us, if you think about like in America, racism unfortunately is based a lot on how people look. Like if somebody looks very different, they start to have those feelings. And
I was to say that does come up in the movie at one point too, when they're like at the airport and somebody's pointing out like different versions of Chinese, and then Korean comes up at one point and they do the same thing, and that's sort of an overarching part of the story too. So there's also sort of a back and forth between the main character's best friend and her old college best friend, who is the fourth person they find along the way, kind of. They both are sort of competing to see who's raunchier. One's kind of in your face about it, and the other's more subtle and subdued, but is still raunchy. I don't know. I feel like to give details would spoil some of the fun. But so that's something that you think that you would go watch though?
Probably. Again, maybe not in theaters unless it was just like a movie pass thing that I wanted to use for points, but streaming for sure. It might be something I would. I do, but I have a lot of things to go see, and I've got the lowest tier because I'm a plebe.
Plebe.
Yeah.
What's next on the list, plebe?
Movie wise, I guess as far as chronologically, probably the Insidious movie, because that's going to be coming out soon. My mom wanted to see Boogeyman. I've heard that it's not very good, but I would still probably check it out.
Wait till it's free.
Yeah.
I wouldn't spend your money on it.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad to say from a Stephen King, based on a Stephen King story, but
let's face it though, like not all Stephen King movies are good. Not all Stephen King books are great, I mean.
No. There's enough good ones out there that like there's a reason why people they name drop him, like when they're promoting stuff. But this just was one of the misses and not one of the hits as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
In fact, the last couple have been misses. The Children of the Corn remake was hot.
I didn't see the remake, but
They're on remake number 3. I don't know
at
why.
At some point, you got to give up. Although they're supposed to make that Welcome to Derry show. I don't know if that's going to be interesting, but I'll definitely check it out.
The origin of Pennywise.
It could be interesting. It could be a cash grab. I don't know. It remains to be seen, I suppose. But I really, being a somewhat of a kid when I saw the original movies and then, whatever, it always scared me to think that this is a monster that targets kids. A lot of the times kids are afraid of the dark. They're afraid of the boogeyman, whatever. But it's after everyone at the end of the day. Pennywise specifically targets children because it's easy to siphon that fear from them. And to me, that's as a former child, that was scary to me that somebody could do that. And
whoa, former.
Well, child plus.
Child of all ages.
Yeah. I would say though, as far as what's next, my favorite thing that I'm waiting for now is the FNAF movie, but that's October. So I should say that's most anticipated, along with the Silent Hill 2 movie, but there's no particular release date on that. Even though I did not necessarily love the other movies, but I'm intrigued. They dropped all this Silent Hill news and they're putting all this stuff out. So I'm at least going to check it out.
Now, do you pay for your movie pass monthly and just let the points roll over if you're not seeing stuff?
Yeah. I think it rolls over for, you get like 1 month of rollover. How's that?
50% of your points from the last month.
Yeah. It's just, there hasn't been anything that has been like compelling me to go. Plus just between time and
that's why I said I might try to Shanghai you for Insidious next week.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely would love to see that.
And you know what? I got no insider knowledge on this one yet. If anything, you've got the insider knowledge having seen 1 through 4.
I will say I don't remember things very well. For instance, I just watched The Ring yesterday, which is one of my favorite movies, but I have not seen Ringu in a long time. So I was actually just watching that just before this. And I was so surprised with how similar the first part of it is, but I know the rest of it gets kind of weird. So point being, unfortunately, my memory is crap.
Did you see the remake they did of that one a couple years ago?
Rings?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't a remake.
It was like a sequel,
soft reboot.
Yeah, it was interesting.
John Cho.
Yeah, I will say the original will always be my favorite, and with that, I would take away the second one because I thought the second one was hot garbage. Like, Samara just wanted a mom. No, she's evil and she just was spiteful. She didn't want a mom. But that's, everyone's got their movies that just like get out of this lore. You don't belong. But yeah, Rings was interesting. It had a cool concept to it. We've got mass media now. We've got things like YouTube and uploading stuff. Like now you can really spread the tape everywhere. So it's a cool concept, but not necessarily perfect by any means.
That's fair. All right. Well, thanks for being on. Thanks for talking movies with me.
No, thanks for having me.
Of course. And then we'll be back next time with another batch of films, guys. This has been Movies in Minutes, and I've been your host, Nabil Khan.
Da singing by, singing by, singing